Hello there everybody, this is Grant, also known as the Collector75, and welcome to another Transformers review. Well, this isn't a review, this is one of my versus sort of videos. I think I've never done one of these before. So then we are going to go for the Siege Megatron against the HENKEI Classics Chug, whatever you want to call it, Megatron. Mainly because I thought I'd do this one, because originally I was never ever going to replace this as my Classics Megatron, really. I used to have the original Classics one, the one that was coloured sort of purple and whatever colour it was, I can't even remember now. But then I upgraded to this one when I saw the HENKEI one, because I preferred the more realistic sort of colour scheme with the sort of silver, grey and black look to it. And I thought it just looked much, much better. Obviously, it still does have that Nerf gun look to it, but I can look past that, and I'll tell you why I can look past that. Because originally, it's from what I remember, the Classics line was supposed to be a modern take on what, if we'd had the Transformers original, you know, the original when it first showed up as Generation 1 all those years ago, if we'd have had that today, or rather 10 years ago, or whatever it was when the original Classic line debuted, yeah, so it would have a modern take. And if you look back when we were children, especially growing up during G1, we had cap guns. And cap guns were pretty much realistic looking guns, really, just with caps in. But obviously, when these were released back in, 10, 15 years ago, give or take, Nerf guns were all the rage, and they still are, kind of, really. So I can completely, in a way, understand why they maybe modelled it on a Nerf gun, and probably to also get around the dodgy gun laws that there are these days. So, you know, as a double header, really, that's probably why they modelled it on a Nerf gun. So I can look past it. But anyway, let's go past that and actually look at the actual toy itself. To me, it's a good gun mode. I love the scope on it. I love the handle. I think the handle I was always a little bit wary of, because I thought, well, it's only one leg that forms the handle. But it actually works pretty well. Now, obviously, it's a bit undersized for my hand being an adult. If you was a child, this would be just about right. And it's got a working trigger, which is pretty cool, and it just looks absolutely good, like a futuristic gun. Kind of reminds me, it looks a bit like Judge Dredd's Lawgiver in a way, or maybe just one of those sort of guns you'd see in any sci-fi programs these days. And it looks pretty cool. He's got a giant Decepticon insignia here. One thing he does beat his Siege counterpart, because when you turn it into the tank, he's got no insignias, so I might have to replace him with some repro labels. I also might get the Toy Hacks upgrade set for this, because it's pretty cool. But I'll come to that when I get on to him. Yeah, so is there anything else more to say about this other than that? Playability value, yeah, it's a little bit hard these days. If I was a child, I'd probably have more playability. I mean, it's good for just holding it and tending to shoot people with it as an adult, but my G1 Megatron, I had so much fun with that when I was a kid in its gun mode. So to say it's unplayable is a bit silly, really, because I loved my Generation 1 Megatron, who was a gun. I played with him pretty much just as much as a gun as I did with him as a robot. So, you know, and I'm not the only person to think that. Actually, pretty certain I saw I think it's Patriot Prime's video, and he said pretty much the same thing. Yeah, I mean, so I can look past it, and that is why I was never ever going to replace this guy. But let's move on to Siege Megatron. Now, Siege Megatron is a more updated take, and they've given him his tank mode, which he usually has now. Now, as a tank mode, it's actually pretty cool. It's one of those sort of H sort of tanks. Whether they actually exist in real life, I have no idea. I don't think so, but you know, as a tank mode, it looks all right. It looks pretty cool. As sort of under there, I mean, you can't actually see any tank treads. I suppose maybe it's supposed to be a hover tank mode, maybe, because obviously it's supposed to be Cybertron based. And who's to say exactly what mode Megatron had on Cybertron? Because in like the old G1 comics and that, we never see him transform. Even in the cartoon, we never see him transform. So who's to say he didn't have a tank mode? You know, if he was thinking like that. So you know, it's not too bad a tank mode. Yeah, it's all right. I mean, I do like it. It's got, at least it's got the tank turret being able to move. I love, personally, all the weathered look, whatever you want to call those paint apps. I actually do not have a problem. If I'm honest, I don't think they've given them enough. Because you always end up with some bits that have it right next door to a bit that doesn't have it. It does look slightly out of place sometimes. So I think it could have just done with all of the bloody thing being done in it. That would have been okay with me. As you can see, he's got a bit of a visible head syndrome. I think you're supposed to tuck it in there like that. Though what the bloody hell the point of that is, I would rather them not bothered, but I'll get onto that when I get him into robot mode. I'm pretty certain most people who have this toy know what I'm probably going to mention about that a little bit. This bit keeps moving around. I don't know, maybe I've just not got it tabbed in exactly how it's supposed to be, maybe. I'm not totally sure. But it's a bit annoying. Maybe it's supposed to go slightly more back there, I don't know. Don't think so. But you know, but I can look past that because usually it's just going to be down like that, isn't it? Or at least this guy, I suppose, is pretty damn solid, you know, when you think about it. Yeah, so if I was going to pick a winner, which one I'd prefer, hard to say. I'd probably go with the Siege, just because if I'm playing with him against my other Transformers, a tank is a lot easier than having Megatron transform into a gun and then pretending to shoot them as a gun, if you see what I mean. Shockwave was a different story because when he transformed into a laser gun, he stayed exactly the same size. But Megatron always turned into a handheld gun to be used by someone else. You had to pretend that. Didn't have a problem with it when I was a kid. But maybe at the time, would I prefer that? I don't know. Hard to say, but I'm going to give it to Siege Megatron here. Yeah, right, okay. I'm going to transform these into their robot modes off camera, just for the sake of time, really. And I shall be back in a moment. Right, so here we have them transformed into their robot modes. And if I'm honest, now who do I prefer? It's a tough one because they've got great points and they've got not so great points. I forgot this guy. I forgot to flip those up. Right, so we're going to start here. We're going to start with the original HENKEI Classics Megatron. Now, I love his robot mode. I've loved it ever since I had the original one, in fact. Now, but that's not to say it's not perfect. Let's go across the things that aren't perfect, which a lot of people don't like. A lot of people do not like these giant bloody wings on the back. Personally, I like to think of them as some sort of strange sort of robotic cape type thing, so I can look past them. But for me, the biggest downer is the fact that his fusion cannon is on the bottom of his arm. It really is like he's carrying one of those weird little white miniguns. It's just a very bizarre choice. I mean, it's obviously down to because of the transformation, but I feel that this could have been sorted out very easily by just simply having his hand on a swivel, so you could just turn his arm, and then you can get his arm doing a bit more. You can do this with it, which I usually do, is I just turn his arm up the right way, pretend that it's the right way around, and then you can get him given a good sort of look about to blow someone away with his fusion cannon there. Now if you get him into a kind of a dynamic pose, which isn't easy, and I'll be honest, for all his added articulation on the Siege one, it's still a bit tricky to get him into a good pose. So anyway, so you can do this and give him a little bit of arm movement here, you know, so you can do something with him, you know. It's not all bad. Now, I love the legs. I think the legs are great. They've done this, especially on this one, the HENKEI one, in this sort of like gloss black paint there. And it really does stand out. They've given him a nice metallic chest as well on this one, a nice big Decepticon insignia. The head sculpt isn't too bad. I'm going to try and get it to focus in just right there. And you can see it's not too bad at all, really. It's not perfect. It certainly doesn't look as good as this one, but certainly not a bad one, if you want my opinion. Yeah, so that's basically the HENKEI one. Again, if this guy had maybe not all these ratchety things, because they really do hinder where you can put the legs, but if this guy had ankle tilts, it would have sorted him out no end. And just doing something like poxy arm, because putting this down here, these wings do get in the way because of it's under his bloody arm. Yeah, it's a bit of an odd choice why they've done that, but it was probably out of necessity. His head is on a ball joint. Now the ball is actually located inside him for once, so you're getting a good range of movement. And then you can just add those wings however you want. Right, I'm going to put him over there. I've got to refocus my camera actually. Give me 1 second. Let me just pop him there. That's better, isn't it? There we go. Right, so we're going to move on to Siege Megatron. Now, what do I like about Siege Megatron? He looks very, very G1. I love the chest. It's very G1. He's very solid all round in his look anyway. And he's got great articulation. I'm not going to take that away from Megatron. He's got a great head sculpt. It's not light piped, but they have painted the eyes red in there, and it's got a very good G1 look. Now then, what do I don't like about the figure? There isn't too much. It's mainly down to quality control. The feel of the plastic does not feel as good as they used to. And it shows about quality control, because obviously there's Tatmus's primes fixed for this heel. Now this heel, it doesn't matter what you do. This one is absolutely perfect. Look at that, clicks out, clicks back in. Why they done a clicking mechanism on the bloody thing in the first place is anybody's guess. They should have just not bothered, because every other figure that uses this, and it's like their sort of signature thing with the Siege line at the moment, is giving them ankle tilts. All the others don't click into place. They just are pretty much friction based, so they're sort of like a good stiff movement. This one has a clicking mechanism, which is completely pointless. But on this one, you click it out, and providing you can get it out, that's never happened before. It's a much tighter click, like this one, nice little one. But then because it's a bigger, tighter click, you just can't get it back in. You have to disconnect the heel, force the bastard back in, and then that usually goes too far, so I've got to bend it back out. But then I've got to reattach the foot, and it's just a pain. It just shows it is bad quality control. Not only that, I've noticed it on other figures. You just have a problem here and there, and it seems widespread on the figure. It's not just one figure particularly, it's every single figure. It looks to me like there was a problem. Like for example, these heel spurs on this figure, I have one that just will not click in, or sometimes it does, and then I have a problem where and I can't get the bastard to stand. I'll be honest with you. It don't matter with the bloody heel spurs, and that started now. It's probably because I've had to pop it off a few times. It's become loose. It's stupid. So anyway, even with the ankle tilts, it might sort it out a little bit, but it's always leaning backwards. I just can't seem to get a good pose. And that means I've got to use these silly things, and it just raises his foot off the ground. I don't know. I'm not too keen on the feet. This bit down, I'm just not keen. I think they could have just done a hell of a lot more with it. They could have. And let's face it, look, you've got open bloody gap there as usual. If this had been 10 years ago when this guy, they would have put a cover there. And they just don't seem to bother these days. You've got the head that just doesn't tab in. It flops everywhere. It doesn't bother me too much as an adult collector, because I can leave it there, and it's not loose or nothing, so it's fine. If you're a child, the minute you're doing anything, it's moving around, and that was going to get on your tits pretty quick. Yeah, but other than that, it's all right. It's more of a nitpick on some of those things, if I'm honest. Is that supposed to have in there? Yeah, it is. Get in there, you bugger. Stay there. But saying that, it's still a great Megatron. It is still a great one, and like I said, it's more nitpicking, especially about the feet. I just wish they could have done slightly better. And I love the paint apps. I know lots of people don't like them. I love them. I think it just adds to it, and I love it across his chest, on his arms, everywhere, and there's a bit on his head there. Again, it's all across here, but there's none around here. And there's, you know, I don't know. A bit bizarre why there's just none here and up there and down here. It's, come on, you know, a bit annoying really. I like his fusion cannon. It's not as in your face as his fellas over here, but it's still pretty good. Yeah, he's all right, isn't he? He's all right. So I know I criticise him to high heaven, but that's the point, isn't it? Eh? You know, but it's still a good figure. Just these feet. If they had just done something better with the feet, it would have been a lot better in my eyes. Yeah, it would have just been perfect if they'd have, pretty much perfect if they'd have just done something better with the feet. But it's still a great toy. I'm just going to raise up the brightness ever so slightly. It is still a great toy, and I love it. Yeah, you know. So which one would I rather have? It's hard because there's points I love about this guy, and I don't want to I'm not going to get rid of him anyway. I like the fact that he turns into a gun. If it had ankle tilts, sorry. This one would have probably, I would have just kept one straight out. Had his hands swiveled or just had the fusion cannon on the side of his arm or something, it would have been a straight win, no problem. But because it doesn't have the ankle tilts, it has this irritatingly placed fusion cannon. I'd probably have to go with Siege Megatron. That's not to say that it's going to replace it, because it isn't. Because I love this one. And it is a great one. And I do love it. Even with all the kibble, it is just my Megatron. I love it. I can get into some damn good poses. Look at that. You can just stick that up there, you know, and he's going to take this fellow out. Look at that. He is going to do some damage with this fusion cannon. This little piddly one over here, he's going to do a bit of damage, but no, this guy's going to take him down. Do you know what I mean? And the feet just look menacing. It looks like they've got circuitry inside there, and it just looks good. Just massively knee pads and everything. This geezer's going to take everybody down. Yeah, so don't get me wrong. I love this one. I love the Siege one. I love them both together, actually. I think it's a draw for me, if I'm honest. As much as I probably said I would go for the Siege one just now, it's probably a draw. They're both great figures in their own right. And yeah, I don't think you could go wrong with either one of these, really. Unless, of course, you don't like the kibble, you don't like certain aspects, then stay away from this one and go for that one. It is, but for me, it's a draw. I love them both. Yeah. Anyway, right, that's enough from me. Right, this has been Grant, the Collect 75. Feel free to subscribe, hit the like button, share the video and everything else. And I shall see you all next time. Bye for now.
Thank you.